The methods and tactics of the influencer to scam the seniors out of their money and personal information were sophisticated and deceptive. The influencer, Mona Fuiz Monterrey, also known as Hagia for Real on Instagram, was part of a criminal enterprise based in West Africa that used fake identities and online platforms to lure lonely and vulnerable seniors into believing they were in romantic relationships with them. The scammers then persuaded the victims to send money to bank accounts controlled by the influencer and her associates, using various false stories and promises. Some of the stories and promises that the scammers used to trick the victims were, they needed money to help move gold to the US from overseas, claiming they had inherited or found a large amount of gold and needed assistance with customs fees, taxes or shipping costs. They needed money to resolve bogus FBI investigations, claiming they were under investigation for money laundering or fraud and needed to pay fines or bribes to clear their names. They needed money to help fake U.S. Army officers in Afghanistan, claiming they were serving in the military and needed funds for medical expenses, travel costs, or humanitarian projects. The influencer used her real name and voice with one of the victims, who transferred about $89,000 to her over 82 wire transfers, believing they were married in Ghana. She sent him a tribal marriage certificate as proof of their relationship and asked him to help with her father's farm in Ghana. She also received money from several other victims who were duped by other scammers in her network. In total, the influencer controlled bank accounts that received more than $2 million in stolen funds from the seniors. She then laundered the money to other members of the criminal enterprise, using a clothing company called For Real Designs as a front. The influencer was arrested in the UK in November 2022 and extradited to the US in May 2023. She pleaded not guilty to 6 counts of wire fraud, money laundering and receipt of stolen money. She faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. The victims of the scam were mostly older, single Americans who lived alone and were looking for love online. They were deceived by fake profiles and messages that made them believe they were in a romantic relationship with someone who cared for them. But in reality, they were sending money to a criminal enterprise based in West Africa that used the money for their own benefit. One of the members of this enterprise was Mona Fuiz Monterrey, a Ghanaian social media influencer who had millions of followers on Instagram. She used her real name and identity to trick one of the victims into thinking they were married and convinced him to send her $89,000 to help her father's farm in Ghana. She also received money from other victims who were scammed by her associates using different identities and stories. The scam caused financial and emotional harm to the victims and their families. Some of them lost their life savings, their homes, their cars, and their dignity. Some of them suffered from depression, anxiety, loneliness, and shame. Some of them even committed suicide or attempted to do so. Their families were also affected by the scam, as they had to deal with the loss of their loved ones, their trust issues, their legal problems, and their financial burdens. The scam also exposed the vulnerability of older Americans who are often isolated and targeted by online fraudsters. It showed the need for more awareness and education about the dangers of online romance scams and how to avoid them. It also highlighted the importance of supporting and protecting the elderly population from such exploitation and abuse.